Studio. We're pleased to welcome now Johnny Poulos, Director of the 1034 Project Officer Wellness and Resiliency Program with the Mississippi Highway Patrol. So, Major, I remember when we first talked about this, I thought it was a great idea. I thought you were a perfect appointment. I said that to you when you came on the program and announced it. But it's been a while. Tell us how that's been working out.
So it's been 3 years.
Wow.
Since Colonel Randy Ginn and Commissioner Tyndall came to me and asked if we had put a resiliency program, I can't speak today, a wellness and resiliency program for officers. And we've covered a lot of ground since then, Gerard. It's been an up and down. It's a double-edged sword. You have to see where you are. When you're building a wellness program, you have to take a look at the problems, which we did, and that gave us an idea of where we needed to go. And 3 years down the road, we've actually expanded the program, and now it encompasses all of the agencies under the DPS umbrella.
Okay.
So every law enforcement agency in DPS is now in the 1034 program,
okay.
And we're seeing great results.
Well, you know what I remember, Major, is when you were on the show in your prior job role with as communications with the Highway Patrol, and you were providing the report, and I think there had been a really terrible crash that had occurred, I believe, over the holiday weekend, and had some details about it. And I think I remember asking you, how do the officers deal with this when they come up upon these crashes and they see this just horrific scene? It's got to affect them. There's no way as strident and as stoical as they are, they're still human beings, and that they take that with them. And I'd asked you, well, what do we do to help them? And you said we got something coming up to address that, and that here we are.
And you're correct. And again, looking at the problem that we have, there's a stigma attached to mental health, and law enforcement officers have to present this image of being strong, right? Yeah. And we do the best we can with that, but what a lot of people forget, at the end of the day, we're still human.
Yeah.
And our families have to deal with the fallout of being, a law enforcement officer family. So, again, making great strides. The first thing we did was put a peer support program together where officers can sit down and talk to a fellow officer that maybe has been subjected to something very traumatic in their career, that can help provide guidance, let them know how they dealt with it. Again, that stigma is a tough nut to crack when it comes to that. But we're seeing a shift in psychological interventions when it comes to counseling. In the past, we were reactive when an officer was subjected to a critical incident.
Okay.
Now we're taking a proactive approach when it comes to helping officers develop a coping mechanism, I should say, on how to deal with these things they're going to see and be subjected in their career. An officer can see things in one day that the average citizen may never see in a lifetime. And that repeated exposure over and over to those type of critical incidents not only has a lasting effect on the officer, it has a lasting effect on their family members as well. Okay. So that is the goal of the 1034 project, to help with that, where officers can live a happy and productive life.
So, or under the program, then, are you providing counseling to their family as well?
Absolutely. So, again, going back and taking a look at some of the things, and we've got Dr. Damon Darcy. He's the medical director of the Mississippi Department of Public Safety. Yeah. He's heavily involved in this process as well, and taking a look at how do we help with officers having a positive attitude when it comes to counseling. Not only that, with their family members as well. So they just revamped our EAP program for all employees underneath the DPS program. And what we have to do, Gerard, is it's a mentality that it shouldn't be a stigma. I mean, we have to equip law enforcement officers now with this tool in their tool belt of knowing, I'm going to be subjected to some really bad things, okay? And if I am, I'm going to have the tools to combat that or to deal with it. And then it's okay when you have to go to counseling.
Yeah.
It's okay. And we have to present that in training. Captain Reed Harrington, the MHP training director, has done a fabulous job in letting us incorporate that into the training aspect. Tony Carlton, the director of Melota, another pro advocate of this program, Commissioner Tyndall, Colonel Charles Haynes, and Lieutenant Colonel James Ivory. They understand the importance of this going forward and building a better relationship with law enforcement and the community. You want to know you have a physically and mentally healthy law enforcement officer out there working.
Sure.
So we're getting there.
So since you've had the program, then has the attitude within the ranks changed? I mean, you're saying it's okay, and I agree with you. Are they coming around to that and feeling like it?
Absolutely. So Colonel Haynes is really big on surveys, and we just finished in-service training where all the law enforcement officers with DPS come in, and we do classes. 1034 was one of them. We did surveys on what's your outlook on in-service. What did you think? 1034 got very high marks on all of the training that in-service consists of. So that tells us we're doing something right with the mentality of, hey, you have to be mentally fit as well.
No doubt.
Physically fit is important. We know that. But if the mind is not right, then you know what happens with the physical aspect of the body. So we're again making great strides.
So as I recall, also the program under the program, you were going to collaborate with some other states as well. Is that right?
Yes, and that was a huge help for me 3 years ago in developing 1034. I talked to police chiefs and sheriffs and state agency directors around the country that were successful in their program. And the number one thing you have to have, Gerard, in one of these programs, you have to have buy-in. You have to have buy-in. It starts at the top. Once everyone that's on boots on the ground start realizing, hey, the administration, they care. That is the biggest thing, to know the administration cares not only about my well-being, but now we're wanting to make sure your family is good as well. Because at the end of the day, that's where your stability lies as a law enforcement officer. It's when you walk through the door to your home.
Yeah, totally agree. So I assume in this collaboration with the other states, you guys are exchanging best practices and ideas. You're learning from each other to improve your programs.
And that's how you make it better. No one has the overall solution, right? And we get together. We have conference calls on, hey, we had a really tragic situation happened, last month. Yeah. How did your agency deal with that? What kind of information did you push out to your officers for them to know, hey, look, we're aware of it. We're going to do the best we can to prevent that from happening in our state. We'd like your input. So this is a collaboration of everyone in administration and everyone that wears the badge as well. And we're asking the public, what their opinion is on this. The public perception of law enforcement, right? And I presented on that a couple of weeks ago, and I thought about, how about inserting 1034? It was the best thing I could have done, Gerard, because they realized what officers actually see and have to deal with on a daily basis that the average citizen just doesn't realize.
And to your point, put in situations where you need to be stable of mind, body and mind, because you could have to make a snap judgment decision that's the difference between life and death.
Exactly, and talking about the mental aspect of that, all about our trooper school. Yeah. And I think everyone knows the dropout rate of that. And most of the time, that's when the mind comes in and overrides everything, right, to where you really can't do this. Yeah. Or the body's it tells you it's time to quit. Well, that tells you how important it is to be the mental aspect of being a law enforcement officer. You have to know this is going to happen. It's not going to be good, but I'm going to work through it because this is I'm having a normal reaction to something that's not normal. And I'm going to be subjected to that maybe 20 and 25 years. So it's a mentality that we're trying to instill in training now.
Yeah. Well, when you described it to me 3 years ago, I said, gosh, this is much needed, it seems like, and we just really didn't have any sort of program like this. So this is going to make the men and women who serve, I think, more effective, and they'll be able to deal with these difficult situations much better, and that's good for everybody. It's good for you guys, good for the public. If you hang around, we'll come back and talk about some new requirements that have been placed on you with respect to driver safety education. We're coming right back with Major Johnny Poulos, Director of the 1034 Project Officer Wellness and Resiliency Program for the Mississippi Highway Patrol. But we're right now visiting with Major Johnny Poulos, who's running the 1034 program, the Project Officer Wellness and Resiliency Program. But it sounds like, you told me, you may have some new responsibilities here. Tell us about that.
I do, and it's a good thing. Commissioner Tindall and Colonel Haynes asked me if I would be part of the new driver's ed program. Senate Bill 2695 was passed and signed by the governor in July that by the start of the 26-27 school year, every secondary school in Mississippi shall offer driver's ed. And that is huge. And you and I have had many conversations over the years when it comes to traffic safety, especially our teen fatality rate. The commissioner was very adamant about getting that passed, and rightly so. It's a matter of fact, just before I arrived, I got the latest numbers for our teens for this year. We're going to surpass last year. We're currently at 77 teens that have lost their lives in traffic crashes this year. And that makes the driver's ed program so much more important now. And we need parents to understand this is a huge issue in Mississippi and across the country when it comes to traffic fatalities.
You know, I never thought about it, but of course when I was going through high school, that's how we learned how to drive a vehicle. How do they learn now?
Well, and that is the problem. I think everyone knows, in today's society, if you have both parents, they're working.
Yeah.
So who's actually going to teach our youth to drive? Is it their friends? Are they getting online and watching videos, or thinking if you can do a video game? If you're successful in a video game, you're going to be successful behind a wheel of a real vehicle. That's our concerns, and that's what we're going to be working on. Okay. I've had the privilege of working with Brian McGarity with the Mississippi Department of Education. He's over Safe and Orderly Schools. I'm working with Director Treasurer Tyson of the Driver Service Bureau. It's a collaboration. We have to put some things together. We have to revise the curriculum that's going to be instructed in the class. Director Tyson and her staff is working on the driver manual. It's going to be a completely new version. It looks great from what I've seen. We have to do this.
Yeah.
I think you know how passionate I am about traffic safety.
Yeah.
It's something every law enforcement officer is concerned with, should be concerned, just due to the number of crashes that we're investigating out there every day. So it's a very exciting time to know that people got together, authored the legislation, had it passed, and for us to see it come to fruition is going to be a really good thing.
And this will be required at every public
Every school shall offer driver's ed. They will have to offer the driver's ed. And something else, too, that was passed into law. We also have to develop a driver's education program for everyone.
Really?
Everyone. If you have never had a driver's license, for example, if you've never had a driver's license and you want one, you will have to go through this driver's education program, which, again, just ensures that you have all information that you need to know when you get behind the wheel.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Well, my mother was an example that I think received her driver's license. I want to say she was in her 40s or something.
There you go.
And it wasn't uncommon, back in those days.
We see it all the time.
Okay.
We just never had anything really in place to where we're educating people on not just the responsibilities, but the liability issues.
Yeah, it's true.
Now that you have, we talk to parents all the time about when your child is in that vehicle and they're behind the wheel, but they have their friends in the car, we need to make sure the teens know they're responsible for everyone inside that car.
Good point.
And so again, that's part of what we're trying to push and get all of this in place with the driver's ed program.
Well, I know it's a bit separate, but as I recall, in my day, your insurance was at a lower cost, right? If you had completed the driver's ed training in high school.
That's correct, and that's still in place. It's just not publicized a lot.
Okay.
But I think you're gonna see that change. I'm in constant communication with people in the insurance industry. Mm-hmm. They know how important this program is as well. Okay. And we just got to get it in place, but we're going to do it.
And when does it have to be implemented?
So it has to be implemented at the start of the 2026-27 school year.
One more year.
It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, absolutely. I assume that all the leadership in the patrol totally supported this, right?
Absolutely. I mean, again, all you have to do, and I know our administration every morning looks at morning reports. Every crash, fatality crash, they have that information. And it's, for some reason, this year's been a tough year for us.
Wow.
And again, to see those numbers for the teen fatality rate in Mississippi for this year is kind of disheartening for me.
Yeah.
And we want to see that come down. But law enforcement can't just fall on the shoulders of law enforcement. We need the support of our parents, of knowing that, hey, when your teenager's walking out that door, just ask a few questions. And I know they feel like we're intruding. We know all about that.
Yeah.
But it's not about being intrusive. It's about caring and knowing that, hey, you at least want to make sure you're wearing your seatbelt. Is everybody in the car wearing their seatbelt? That's what it's going to take to make this program successful. Again, it can't just fall on the shoulders of law enforcement.
Simple stuff. Major, do you feel like that the spike in teenage crashes, do you feel like that this being on their telephones is a big part of that?
I'm glad you brought that up, because that is some of the things now in this law that has to be taught in the driver's ed program. Driver distractions is a big thing.
Sure.
We're revising that. There's another supplemental class that will also be instructed to where how to interact with a law enforcement officer on a traffic stop.
Okay.
So that's another thing to bridge that gap between the public and law enforcement. We want a better perception, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of teenagers do not know what to do when they see those blue lights come on. So we're gonna try to change that. But again, going back to your question about issues with the crashes, driver distraction, number one. That is our number one issue. The biggest killer of teens in car crashes, they're not wearing their seatbelts.
Still not wearing seatbelts?
Still not wearing their seatbelts.
Well, I'm always shocked anytime we get the reports after a big holiday weekend of the number of citations that are issued for folks not wearing their safety belt. I mean, it's hundreds. And that's just the people you see and know.
And some of that is people just not remembering to put their seatbelt on, but some of it is choice. A lot of people just don't want to wear their seatbelt, but they have no idea the crash dynamics and the physics of what happens inside a vehicle when you're involved in a traffic crash. You don't have your seatbelt on. You're basically a ping pong ball inside that car. If it rolls and you're not restrained, and that's why we have so many ejections, because you're not being restrained inside the car, and the car's rolling over at 80 miles an hour, you're going to be ejected, and you're not going to survive that crash.
Yeah. Well, I know Captain Turnipseed, whenever he comes on, he always shares that data with me, and he says, Gerard, I know this is your favorite. It's actually not my favorite. I was just shocked. Anytime he shares these statistics, I can't believe it's that many.
Again, I think we have a problem with the general public is desensitized, I should say, when it comes to hearing it, like during the holiday periods. You know what we do during the holiday periods. We push information out to the public to let them know, hey, you're going to see law enforcement officers out there. But it's what we want them to understand is We need you to be safe. We need you to wear the seatbelt. We need you to slow down so we don't have that interaction between a motorist and law enforcement.
Yeah.
And that ensures everyone has a good holiday period. You've been doing this a long time, and you get those numbers. And it's disheartening.
It very much is.
But we have to stay the course, and we have to stay trying to accomplish that mission.
I also want to compliment you for including just a discussion, some training about how to interact with an officer. I never thought about that. I don't think that was part of the curriculum when I did it. But this could also save them a lot of trouble as well.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because that could easily escalate into something they didn't mean, but because you didn't really understand the protocol here, you crossed the line. They got to act accordingly.
That's
right.
The
officer does.
That's right.
Major, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having
appreciate
me,
all the great work you guys do. And, of course, shout out to all the great men and women of the Mississippi Highway Patrol, the state troopers that protect us on our highways.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it. We're coming right back, folks, in the Element Well studio.